Well, hello. Welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger on February 18, 2021. I know last week I said this week we got to round up our series of the Venom family, but I decided to give you guys a little bit of a break and do something else instead, because I figured we're all a little bit venomed out at this point. We looked at 2 week, 2 episodes of various Venom symbiotes in the Venom family in a row, and I figured it's not a bad idea to step away, look at something else, and then come back to finish that off next week. Well, okay, I'll fess up. I totally forgot. By the time I remember that we were supposed to finish the Venom family, I have already prepared for this week's show and tell toy review. So yeah, no, nice story, but truth of the matter is, I totally forgot what I was supposed to do, and so you're stuck with what we're looking at this week. And we'll go back and finish off the Venom family next week. Now, luckily, I would hope this week we have something really cool to look at. After all, everyone loves dinosaurs. Well, maybe not everyone, but I know at least almost every boy grew up loving dinosaurs. Now, a while ago, maybe a long while ago, we already looked at a couple of the giant-sized dinosaurs I have in my collection. The colossal size uh, T-Rex, the colossal size Indominus Rex, and the huge Mosasaurus, all were very cool. Well, we are back for more this week. Now, as is usually the case, if you have not watched Jurassic World or its sequel, and you do not wish for any kind of spoiler, you'll probably want to turn this video off at this point because there is going to be spoilers for the rest of this review. Immediately in front of the camera, we have an Indominus Rex action figure. I don't even know if the camera is able to capture the entire figure because he is really quite large. So I would imagine you are not able to see parts of him just because we are kind of a little bit limited with space here. And this is not even the large one. We've seen the large, the colossal size Indominus Rex before in the previous review, where I actually had to film him from the opposite kitchen counter to be able to get you guys to see him. That's how big the big one was. Now this is technically the smaller one, although it's still quite large. This is called Devour, the Destroy and Devour Indominus Rex. It's made in a smaller scale. Now, there's a bit of a happy story with this action figure, this particular action figure that I will tell you in a little while. First, let's take a look at this Indominus Rex. Like I said, he is really quite large. Uh, Even in this smaller scale, he stands roughly 10 inches tall uh, to the top of his back, probably taller if you raise him up, like if he's rearing back, rearing up on his hind leg like this. Uh, but that's not the proper way to pose him. Um, Although Indominus Rex will sometimes rear back like this, most of the time, like a T-Rex, they're supposed to be a little bit more horizontal, even though they do run on the hind legs, they do run on 2 legs, they tend to keep their body a little bit more horizontal, like this. So he's about 10 inches tall to the highest point on his back, and he's 24 inches long. That is a humongous action figure. Uh, even though he is, like I said, of a smaller size than his larger counterpart. Like his film adaptation, this version of Indominus Rex, he's knocking things over, and that's a problem with a large action figure like this. It's hard to pose. Like his film counterpart, this Indominus Rex is mostly gray and white, with some uh, darker, like black coloration uh, threaded throughout, and he has orange red eyes, and the inside of his mouth. Let me turn him around. The inside of his mouth is, I believe, painted pink. And as you can see, a lot of really jagged looking, scary looking teeth in his mouth. Now, immediately, I will say one thing I really like about this action figure, this dinosaur action figure, is quite often when you have a dinosaur action figure, uh, they are made with their mouth stuck in the open position, which, while it looks impressive, as you know, animal people tend to not wander around with their mouth open. So it's nice to have a dinosaur action figure that can be in a more of a neutral pose rather than always have their mouth wide open like a lot of old dinosaur toys were prone to do. And of course, in this case, the mouth have the option to be open. However, it does not have an option to stay open, unfortunately. Uh, so you don't have that option. This thing also makes sound. Well, talk about the action feature in a little bit. This thing is full of action features, but as I say, this is kind of a happy story in itself, and I think the title of the story is "Good Things Often Happen to Those Who's Willing to Wait." You see, when this Indominus Rex first was made, I decided not to get him because honestly, I'm not a big fan of action figure by Mattel, which is the company that made this. Mattel's known for making Barbie dolls and some really, 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 really horrible action figures. Um, So when this first came out, I decided to skip it because it was Mattel, and Mattel is just awful enough for me to wanted to give it a pass without giving them a chance. I felt that I wasted enough money getting crappy products from Mattel in the past, from their Ghostbuster line, from their DC superhero line. Like almost everything made by Mattel, I had something that I really didn't like. In fact, in the reviewing community, there's a say that there's never been an idea that Mattel doesn't do wrong. And in many ways that was true. But this time, with the Jurassic World line, Mattel really, really surprised everybody. This Indominus Rex became super popular, and it's such an awesome action figure. We'll talk more about why it's an awesome action figure in a little while. But long story short, by the time I realized, hey, I really should get some of these dinosaurs. They appear to be pretty cool. This Indominus Rex was already selling for hundreds of dollars on the secondary market, and you couldn't even find him in the store anymore. Even on Amazon, it was selling over $100. While when it first was when it first came out, it was only like $30. So, needless to say, I was rather annoyed with myself because I didn't want to spend that much money on an Indominus Rex dinosaur, but I really, really wanted one. So I was constantly looking at Amazon, constantly looking at eBay, hoping that someone would sell one secondhand for cheap. And then a miracle happened. Mattel came out with the colossal giant size Indominus Rex. And that big one, which was basically twice the size of this one, was selling for $50 in the store. And of course, this time I was ready. As soon as the giant one came into the store, I snatched it up. Like $50 for an Indominus Rex that was twice the size of the one that I was looking at. Wow. I was so happy. And then, of course, because now the big one was out and the small one wasn't selling as well because everyone wanted the big one. So the small one, the price dropped too. So I was able to acquire this one for its original price of $30. And I just happened to like Indominus Rex enough that I decided, sure, I'll get the small one as well, because the small one, as we said, it's still huge, makes a nice monster for other characters to battle on the shelf. And when it's a cool dinosaur monster, it's always nice to have more than one. Especially now I have a big one and a small one, so they can have like a mother-daughter or father-son thing going on. So what is the Indominus Rex? Well, in the Jurassic World, again, spoiler alert, in Jurassic World, stop knocking things over, gee whiz. In Jurassic World, the scientists decided that if they could take the DNA of a T-Rex and mix it with a whole bunch of other kind of DNA from other dinosaurs, they could make the perfect killing machine, and then they could then market it to the military as a bioweapon. So they took DNA from T-Rex and a Carnotaurus and a Velociraptor and pit viper and a cuttlefish and tree frog, and there was like 20 kind of different animals, and they took all that DNA and mixed it together and bred this gigantic killing machine they called the Indominus Rex. Originally there were two Indominus Rex, but one killed the other one and ate it, so there were only one left. And throughout the movie, we got a first-hand experience to see just how scary the Indominus Rex really was. This thing was so powerful that it was able to stand up and defeat a full-grown adult T-Rex. It also was hardy enough to survive uh, shots from a machine gun and even took a hit from a rocket launcher and didn't even go down. In the end, it was killed by the mosasaurs when the mosasaurs grabbed it and dragged it into the water and Indominus Rex drowned. Well, I think that's what happened. We didn't really see what happened after it got dragged into the water, but at that time it was kind of wounded and had some serious injury from fighting with a helicopter and T-Rex and Velociraptor and all kinds of stuff. So it was not at its best shape. Otherwise, it's quite likely that the mosasaurs wouldn't be able to do that to the Indominus Rex. At its full adulthood, the Indominus Rex was to stand about 20 feet tall and is 50 feet long. So it's a giant, giant dinosaur. For the most part, it looks a lot like a T-Rex, but I'm going to show you guys a few little differences that show you this is definitely not a T-Rex. First, look at the arm. T-Rex have short, stubby arms. Indominus Rex, on the other hand, have these huge, long, powerfully muscled arms with these big sickle-like claws at the bottom, at the end, and it has a opposable thumb, so it can grab things. These claws were so deadly in the movie that he was able to kill some of the giant dinosaurs with one swipe of his claw. On the top of the head, I'll hold him upside down so you guys can see. On top of the head, you can see all kind of little bony protrusions, and There's two little horns on the top of the head. That's also not from a T-Rex. That's from a Carnotaurus. Little horn here on the top of the head. Also, you can tell that the Indominus Rex has some crocodile genes in its body because the shape of the mouth and how the teeth are showing even when the mouth is closed like that. Definitely a crocodilian feature. All these skewed and sharp scales on the back, these are also not a T-Rex feature. Ow, it just poked me in the face with the tail. Now, this particular Indominus Rex, like I said, it's a smaller version, although it's still huge. But I'm going to bring a normal human size, like human character, into the frame so you guys can see. This is Daredevil, and standing beside Daredevil, you can appreciate how huge the Indominus Rex is, even on this small scale. Mind you, this version is supposed to be displayed with a 3-inch action figure rather than a 6-inch action figure to make it look more proper. But even with a 6-inch action figure, it's huge. It looms over Daredevil. And if I put Daredevil up against his body like this, you can really appreciate just how big the difference is. The cloth is big enough to actually hold Daredevil in it, like that. So while it is too small to really be a proper Indominus Rex at this scale, it's just big enough to be cool and big enough to display really good as a random monster for your 6-inch, 7-inch action figure. Now let's look at some of the action features that really make this a fun toys for children. This is not just a good collectible for adults. This is actually a really fun toy for children. There's two buttons on the back of the Indominus Rex. Let me turn him around. Actually, I think it's a her. It's a she, but I'm not sure. There's a button along the spine somewhere. Oh, here it is. At the middle of the back here. And there's another button on the tail here. Okay? So there's two buttons on this beast. And also, if I move his leg forward to let him bow down, his head will move down towards the ground like he's going to snatch up a prey. And then when I move him back up, then the head will come back down. Okay? That's some cool feature. And also, he's quite articulated. His arms, that's joint in the elbow, that's joint in the shoulder, that's joint. No, I thought there were joints in the wrist, but I guess not. Uh, Back leg move, click, 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 up and down like that. Ankles turn left, right, center. That's just for you to help balance him better. Uh, and the mouth open, neck bob up and down like that. So it has quite some articulation, uh, not the best articulated figure, but it's cool. For a giant dinosaur, it's pretty cool. Now, what do these buttons do? The top button between its shoulder blade will make the arms move, and it will make that noise. It looks like it's clapping its hand, but I don't think that's what it's supposed to do. Uh, anyway, the button on the tail will open the mouth and make it roar like this. Really, really cool. Now, there's another little hidden feature that if you have a small action figure, just put it in the Indominus's mouth and push it into his throat. There's actually a switch in the throat that if another action figure hit it, it will make that chewing, grinding sound like it's eating it. And I believe there's a light that goes on in the throat. So yeah, really, really fun toy. It's a huge dinosaur. It's a huge, uh, scientifically engineered dinosaur that it's more badass than the T-Rex, and it's full of action features, make scary noises. Just really, really cool. Definitely a very worthwhile action figure, and I was so happy that I finally was able to get it on the cheap because the bigger one came out. Before we let Indominus Rex go, we'll give you a shot of the underside, underbelly of this beast. Look at this giant claw on the back feet. Now let's set it aside and we'll look at our next contender for the evening. Moving on to Jurassic World 2. The scientists now realize that while Indominus Rex was a definite killing machine, it had one problem. It was too big. It was like the size of a small house. So it's really hard to hide it on the battlefield. So they decided to take the DNA of an Indominus Rex and combine it with a Velociraptor and make a smaller but just as deadly killing machine. And this new killing machine in Jurassic Park 2, who actually turned out to be not all that lethal and kind of dumb, actually, but that's just my opinion. This second killing machine, second dinosaur hybrid, was called an Indoraptor. An Indoraptor, in many ways, to date, is probably one of the best made dinosaur toys on the market. I'll show you why. First, here is Indoraptor. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than the Indominus Rex. Very sleek looking. Uh, for the most part, it looked like a raptor, but twice the size of a regular raptor. It, it's mostly bluish black with gold stripes down the side. Let's turn it so you guys get a different view. Part of what made the Indoraptor one of the best dinosaur action figure ever made is, well, the size, and also this guy was only 24 bucks, and it's one of the most articulated dinosaur action figure that you can get on the market, and just work beautifully with all kind of superheroes and fighting video game action figures. Let's bring Daredevil back into the frame, and then we'll do a comparison. Here is Daredevil, and while the Indoraptor is sort of running on all fours like this is actually how it's supposed to look on the film. It moves a lot of time on all fours, even though it can actually stand up on its hind leg. So when it's on this pose, it's about the same height as Daredevil. But if you make it stand up like a bipedal dinosaur is prone to do, like this, then suddenly it looms over Daredevil. So rearing up like this is, I guess it's about 10 inches tall, 9 inches tall, and the mouth is actually big enough. Look at that, the mouth is big enough to go to take Daredevil's head in there, like that. So even against a 6-inch action figure, it's not a small dinosaur. It's a pretty good sized dinosaur to do battle with them on the shelf. And let's take a closer look at not Indominus, the Indoraptor. Like the Indominus Rex, it has long arm with opposable thumb on the end. It also has all kind of ridges on its back, proto feathers on the back of his head like that, long whippy tail. Look at the claw on the feet there, giant sickle-like claws, the trademark of a velociraptor. This dinosaur is super articulated. The head is articulated in two spots, and the jaw is articulated as well. Open and close the jaw. I believe the tongue might be articulated. Let me see. No, maybe not. The arm articulated the shoulder, bicep, elbow, wrist. The back leg articulated the hip, knee, ankle. And then the tail is articulated in two spots as well. But this is just a really well articulated, really well made dinosaur toy for a low price of $24. Now it does have a kind of a flaw that some of the joints it's really loose, like the left arm here, it's kind of floppy like that. So I have to tuck it in close to its body like this. Otherwise, it's just going to flop around. But other than that, it is really well made and display really well, either as in with your other dinosaurs or just as a random monster for your superheroes to battle. And it's definitely a cool toys for children to play with. Really, really good. Unfortunately, like I said, the Indoraptor turned out to be rather dumb in the movie, and in the end, it got killed by falling off the roof and got impaled on a dinosaur fossil, or was it a dinosaur replica? It got impaled on some kind of dinosaur statue thingy, and died. So it was not quite as uh, badass as its predecessor, the Indominus Rex. So what happened after you go to the trouble of making hybrid dinosaurs and they turn out to be not quite as lethal or uh, uh, crazily uh, dangerous or financially obtainable as you thought? What's the next step? How can you make this even better? You already bring dinosaur back, and then you make hybrid dinosaurs. What's next? Well, according to Todd McFarlane, the next step is a robotic dinosaur, and this is a main star of today's video from the new Raw 10 robotic animal toy series. Here is Todd McFarlane's take on a velociraptor that has been enhanced with robotic. For the most part, it looks like a regular velociraptor, except it has a long, really long arm, and you can tell that it got some computer or technology enhancing its features, like the claw, the feet. These all look robotic. The body on the side of the hip, you can see the robotic components there. This was one of the birthday gifts given to me by my friends Ian and Darren for my birthday in 2020. And While the rest of the robotic animal program figures, I really love them. When I look at this raptor, that's his name, Raptor. When I look at Raptor here, I wish I can grab Todd McFarlane by the lapel and shake him. I want to say, McFarlane, why would you do this? Why? Like this is a really bad execution. This is just this Raptor is a bad idea all around. Now, from looking at the camera, you may say, well, what's wrong with it? Looks pretty cool. It's a nice looking dinosaur, and it has a very dynamic pose. Looks pretty cool. What's wrong with it? Well, let's start with the name. This may seem like I'm nitpicking, but Todd McFarlane got this really cool concept, robotic animal program, and all the other animals, all the other creations have really cool cybernetic name like Cygor and Frenzy and Battlesnake. Okay, Battlesnake is a little bit lame, but still. And what this guy called? This guy just called Raptor. All he did was change the OR to AR and call it a day. That's very lazy, okay? If you are making a robotic dinosaur and the only thing you can think of is call it Raptor, then okay, I don't know. That's just to me is a very lazy thing to do. Now, name aside, let's look at the description of this creature. On the bio of the description of the raptor, it said the robotic animal program took Velociraptor design and crossed it with state-of-the-art computer technology and created three killing machines that are led by the fourth, which is the raptor. These enhanced killers, they can do crushing bite, they can hit really hard with their tail, they can jump really high, they can attack with their lethal claws, and they, because of their state-of-the-art technology, they're able to hunt in a pack and move as a team. So they are unstoppable because they can move as a pack. Now, if you know your dinosaur history or dinosaur trivia, then you already know what I'm going to say. Hunt as a pack, jump really high, attack with their killer claws, do crushing bites with their jaw. That's things velociraptors already do. So Todd McFarlane wrote that lengthy bio and didn't do anything new. In another word, the robotic animal program messed up with these guys. They bind them with computer technology to give them abilities that they already had originally, which is really silly. It didn't give them anything new. Okay, so that like as far as the name, as far as the biography, it's just a big mess, a big flop, as far as the Raptor is concerned. But if all that, if those were the only problem, it can still be salvaged. It can still be a good action figure, but it's not. The raptor is sculpted in a very dynamic pose. Sorry, dynamic pose. Voice cracking there. I'm getting thirsty. It's standing on three legs and it's looking over its left shoulder, and its tail is held high like this. So yeah, the pose looks pretty cool. I'll say no other dinosaur action figure in my collection can get into that pose. So it's a good looking pose. Don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, that is the only pose it can get into. Okay, so we saw how articulated the Indoraptor was, and even though the Indominus Rex was less articulated than the Indoraptor, it was still more articulated than this guy. The tail can kind of move a little bit. So yeah, I guess you can maybe change the position on the tail, but Look at that. That's just silly. You know, and the scales don't line up. So the tail, if you want the scales to line up, the tail would only look good in its original pose, sort of curling up like that. Okay, the head is kind of stuck in the looking back position. You can twist it forward, but look at this. If you twist it forward, it looks like it's going to sleep. It's looking down, like it's tucking its head down into the ground. So, and again, the scale on the back don't line up. So there's only one way to pose the head for this to look good, which is like this, looking over the shoulder like that. Okay? The mouth, the jaw is articulated like out, like this. But if you have the head permanently stuck looking over one shoulder, what good is a sharp teeth and articulated jaw? It's always looking the wrong way. It's not going to look like it's attacking. Hmm? It's stuck in this pose. It's really bad. Now the legs are articulated barely. You can hardly move this, and if you move the leg, he's not going to be able to stand, right? Because there's no knee joint. The only articulation in the leg is the hip. So when the leg's stuck in that crouched position, it's stuck. It can't go anywhere. Right? The arms move at the shoulder, move up and down like this. But again, because the claws are stuck curling in like this, it's not going to look good in a lot of poses. So it's kind of, and not to mention if you move the arm, then this thing fall over. It has to support itself on one hand at least. Okay, so it has some articulation, but you can't do anything with them. It's just really, really poorly made. Is it a good looking kind of a statue? Yeah, it's not bad, and considering it's only $9, it's good. There's a lot of plastics there. It's not a bad sculpt. It's a good looking dinosaur. But when it's supposed to be for children to play with, there's nothing you can do with it. And, and even on display, it's only good for one pose and one pose only, which leads to another problem. If raptor was supposed to be the only creature, then maybe having that one single pose is okay. But if you look at the biography, he's supposed to be the leader of the pack, and that there should be three more. In another word, if you want him to display properly, you want to buy four copies of this guy. You want to buy four for them to be in a pack. But when all four are stuck in the same pose, it's going to look extremely stupid on the shelf. Okay? So no matter if it's biography or name, execution, planning, this raptor is the worst of the robotic animal program line of action figure. And while it is a good-looking dinosaur, good-looking robotic dinosaur, it is just a big disappointment. I got to say, like, I was very excited to have a robotic dinosaur in my collection, but then this robotic dinosaur is stuck in this pose where he's forever looking over one shoulder and having its tail curled up in that silly pose. Yeah, McFarlane, why? See, this is the kind of action figure that eventually, 20 years ago, eventually caused Todd McFarlane to drop off the top of toy making. That's what caused McFarlane to lose the title of the best action figure maker of his time because he started making statues disguised as action figures, things that are stuck in this extreme dynamic pose and sort of people who collect statues don't want them because they're too cheap. People who collect action figures don't want them because they can't move. So things that didn't sell. It took over 15 years for Todd McFarlane to learn how to make action figures that have useful articulation that people would want. And suddenly he backslid into making this thing, which is basically the kind of thing he was making 20 years ago. It's just really sad. Anyway, in the end, we still end up with some good-looking dinosaurs, and uh, even though he is a silly, silly design, a silly animal, a silly character, and a silly, silly pose, he is still okay, looking, lurking in the background of the display shelf. Thank you for checking out today's Toy Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. And if I don't forget again, next week we'll come back and finish the Venom family tree. Have a good night, and don't dream of dinosaurs. Or dream of dinosaurs, just don't get eaten.